The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Michigan preemptively self-imposing a 2-game suspension on head coach Sherrone Moore.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Michigan, according to ESPN, has self-imposed a 2-game suspension on Sherrone Moore for weeks 3 and 4. If you're doing the math there, that's Sherrone will miss coaching against the team that Michigan hired him away from. That's Central Michigan at home, and miss being on the road at Nebraska. Of course, he'll get to, if everything stands, coach at his alma mater. According to Pat Forty over at Yahoo, the Committee on Infractions is set to convene for a hearing on June 6th and 7th. And thus, we should be getting closer and closer to an actual resolution as it pertains to the Connor Stalions saga. In case you missed it, don't remember, think it was pertaining to something else, Jesse Minter had agreed to a 1-year show cause and Steve Clinkscale to a 2-year show cause. They're suspended so long as that they're in the NFL for some of the added recruiting violations that were discovered through NCAA exposition throughout as they continued to try to find what they could pin on Connor Stalions, Jim Harbaugh, and the rest. Of course, you've got the rival fans, you've got fans of other teams. The Clemson ones, man, I see a few Clemson ones. It's like they're just throwing stones at glass houses in general, which is just nuts to me. But they're out celebrating, and they're tying Santa Ono deciding to take the Florida job reportedly for about double the amount of pay. And as John U. Bacon put out there, no one in Michigan seemed particularly upset that he was departing the program. And when I say program, I should say institution. It's not a program, University of Michigan, because of course all the rival sports fans want to make Santa Ono leaving, the president of the university, right? Like that's like their sole job is sports. That's like barely their job. Not leaving due to your proverbial hammer. But Sherrone suspended 2 games by Michigan. I have a lot of thoughts on this, and hopefully we can get them all in here within the allotted time frame or what have you. Number one, I want to come back on those who say, well, if you didn't do something guilty, listen, what he's accused of is not having knowledge of the Connor stuff, of not having participation in all of that. It's on the text messages that he deleted. We did a little demonstration of how quickly it takes to delete text messages. This is what Sherrone did. He read Connor Stalions, and I have this on good authority. He read Connor Stalions' name in the paper. He went and saw that, I've got text with him. And all he basically did, having an iPhone, is just a little swipe, delete, done. They make it seem like it was something big and whatever. Now, is that well advised? No, it absolutely is not. It's very ill-advised that he did that. But that's not necessarily showing that there's anything that was incriminating. And again, I have on good authority that there was nothing that incriminated him, but that's still considered by the NCAA impeding an investigation, even though he turned them over and all of that. Okay, so that's number one. He was going to get suspended for his part in this. You could kind of see even just with the show causes and all of that stuff given to Minter for contacting a recruit before the allotted time. That type of thing happens all through college football. And Steve Clinkscale, I don't know what he did to impede, but supposedly giving gear to a recruit who eventually became a commit, who eventually transferred away to him at like a camp of some sort. If I have I think that's what happened. I'm not 100 on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. With them getting multiple show causes and all of that, Jim Harbaugh getting a 4-year show cause due to Burgergate and all of that, it's not unsurprising that the NCAA would want a heavy-handed punishment. Now, in this case, why do I have a problem? It's because it's not the NCAA that self-imposed this. This is, if Michigan would have put out a statement of some sort saying, like, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, I'd have a little bit more of an easy time with this. I'm having an issue with Michigan here. I kind of echo what Steve Deace, Michigan podcast, tweeted out earlier today. I've had multiple people reach out to me from in and outside, the building, people who are tertiary to the program, but like kind of a part of the program or have been a part of the program. I've fielded phone calls from multiple people, and they're all upset about the same thing. It's Michigan self-imposing this. Now, if this was a self-imposition that came with, okay, and then the matter is therefore settled, then it would be kind of one thing, and Michigan could go out and say, like, all right, here's why we decided to do this and whatever. But otherwise, what it does is it does make Sherrone look like he did something that is guilty of punishment. Now, is the deletion of text messages guilty of punishment? Sure. Okay, that's all I got for you. Sure. But does it make it look like he's got something more that's going on with the Conner Stallions of it all? Yes. And this is going against the Don Canham, the former Michigan athletic director, turning a one-day story into a two-day story. Heck, it's turned into a 2-year story. Michigan could have kind of staved a lot of this off, but they handled things internally so poorly in so many ways. And when you look and see other schools where their NCAA investigations haven't played out in the media the way Michigan's has, Michigan's done nothing to combat it, right? Like, it's playing out in the media, and Michigan's not only done nothing to combat it, it's undermined its own case in a lot of ways. This kind of being one of them, right? And what it reminds me of, so while I was writing, I had The Mandalorian season 3 playing. Spoiler alert, but it's been out for a while. It's not really a spoiler, but there's a part where the main villain, I'm not going to even name it in case you haven't seen it. He says something to one of the other characters and says, like, give me the dark saber and I'll give you a warrior's death. And it's like, well, they're still in the middle of the fight. Like, the fight has not been decided. They're in the middle of the fight. And he's like, basically like, surrender. I'll kill you, but I'll kill you nicely, even though you could still win the fight. That's kind of what Michigan did. It's self-immolated in this moment. Because if I'm Michigan, I'm going more to bat, because you've already seen with Burgergate that the NCAA doesn't necessarily respect your self-imposed penalties, right? Michigan came out and said, we're going to suspend, because everyone thought it was the NCAA was suspending Jim Harbaugh 3 games. And it turned out it was Michigan. And then they still went around and gave him a 4-year show cause for the whole thing, for his pleasure. So if I'm Michigan, unless you have it and like on such good authority to the point where the NCAA is willing to like put out there like, hey, we're going to drop this, then why are you participating in this sham trial essentially? I just think it's absurd.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking up the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until Gametime. With last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Jared Curtis is a Georgia Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today is the day that Jared Curtis, Nashville Christian Academy, #1 quarterback in the country, he commits to Georgia. We were on here earlier in the day talking about our predictions. Both of us didn't think he was going to commit. We said we really want him to commit. Go back and listen. But we didn't think he was going to. Shame on us for doubting Kirby Smart. Shame on us for doubting the man, the myth, the legend, Let's talk about initial reactions on the Jared Curtis commitment. And then I've got some specific things. I'm sure you got some specific things you want to dial down on, Clint. But give me your initial thoughts as it came across your timeline that we had, in fact, landed the number one quarterback, 5-star quarterback, Jared Curtis.
Here's the initial reaction. He's the best quarterback in the country. Just hands down. You can keep whoever you think, Tennessee. I'm not here for it.
Tennessee again.
You don't get to talk anymore at the
we're talking about quarterbacks. You don't want to engage that conversation. I promise you, because I'll bring one up if you want to. Okay.
Jared Curtis commits, meaning that Georgia has again found its offensive leader, this cornerstone on which I keep saying this tidal wave that is coming, that I think again was very, very, very important in Kirby Smart's early tenure with the Richard LeCounte, the Jake Fromm, that recruiting class. Those guys in those 2 years really set the stage for what would become Georgia after that, what we have amounted to and what we have not stepped back from at all. These two classes feels very similar to that, where it was the Christmas commit from all of those guys, all very favorite dogs to us. The Jared Curtis commitment is like that, but for NIL. Before, that was like that for all the guys staying home, staying in Georgia. Now the Jared Curtis one, everybody, this is massive, because not only can we get a 5-star kid. Okay, he's 5-star in normal tactics, quote unquote. Not normal. In years bygone, because they are bygone.
Yeah,
Kirby would have just owned this space without question. And now, instead of playing Ohio State game, instead of playing all the other SEC games of just throwing money out and seeing what sticks, Kirby has adapted. And not only has he gotten a 5-star kid, he's gotten him doing the thing that he has done, which is not throw $5.5 million at a kid and see if that's what lands him. No, he has said, I will give you fair valuation. Make no mistake, Jared Curtis will get his fair valuation.
Or he's going to get paid.
He's going to get money, million. Yeah. Okay. This kid and Kirby's a connection that Mike Bobo has, and that's going to be a question I have for us a little bit.
That we're going to get to in the second segment.
Means that Kirby Smart has now gone in and gotten the best position, best recruit in the
most
nation.
Important position, number one player at that position.
In NIL, when all y'all told me he couldn't do it. He's killed the dragon.
He's going up against Jared. Just let me rehash the timeline for you. He's committed to Georgia.
This is the second time.
He's committed to Georgia, and then he backs off that commitment. Why do people back off commitments, Clint, in 2025, the year of our Lord? They back off commitments because people start throwing insane amounts of money at them. Like, Jared Curtis is committed to Georgia, and all of a sudden, Dan Lanning and Phil Knight and Nike start calling him up and saying, this is the kind of money we're going to give you.
Phil Knight money, y'all.
We're going to back up the truck to you. And so that's the proof is in the pudding that Kirby has been able to do this, slay the dragon, as you say, overcome the NIL obstacles that everyone seems to think Georgia has. Georgia doesn't spend the big money. Georgia loses players to, like Carson Beck, who, for NIL concerns. Georgia's only able to get players that, want to commit for the love of the game and all that stuff. But anybody interested in making money, they're going to find better money, better paychecks elsewhere. They're going to be able to go to Ole Miss. They're going to be able to go to Oregon. They're going to be able to go to Ohio State. Georgia proves this is a kid that was convinced enough to back off of his commitment because of the insane amounts of money that were being thrown at him. All the reports that Georgia's in on Bo Bentley, he's the number one target for Georgia's moved on from this kid, from Jared Curtis, because now they've moved on to another quarterback. They can't afford him. They can't compete with the Nike money. Kirby Smart able to get this done in the NIL era. I couldn't agree more, Clint. That is the lead story here. It is the lead story that Georgia gets the most important position on the field, the best player at that position, who's also being courted by maybe the most lucratively funded university in the country.
Blank
and
check.
Texas and Oregon are right there. Okay.
Do you know how Nike shoes are made? It's at low cost for labor. Let me just say that. Okay.
Oh no. Okay. Well, we're now talking about an old white man's slave labor tactics to produce a tennis shoe. But the third segment's coming. We'll get more into that maybe later. But for now, just let me not have you lose the lead story. Kirby Smart has proven that he is still the king, even in this era of recruiting. He was the king when he was carrying Nick Saban's carcass across the finish line. And he was the king when he came to Georgia and revolutionized college recruiting.
Check.
And he is the king right now amidst all of the slander of the Georgia program, all of the reports that Georgia's on a downfall, all of the insinuations that Georgia doesn't have the funds to compete. Kirby Smart gets it done. Kirby Smart is the king. We all know this.
I do.
But Kirby Smart was not the lead recruiter here.
Huh, interesting.
Kirby Smart was he was content to sit in the background and let his old friend, the nepotism hire,
the nepotism hire, correct.
Old nepotism Mike come in, and Mike Bobo lands the number one quarterback prospect in America. Mike Bobo continues at however old he is. He might be 85 years old. I have no idea how old Mike Bobo is. He continues to be relevant to 18-year-old kids looking to further their NFL dreams.
Interesting.
Mike Bobo continues to be a person that they want to trust and desire to play for. We talk a lot about Dylan Raiola and the choices that he made to go to Nebraska. Look at Dylan Raiola and his desire to come play for Mike Bobo before Nebraska backed up the truck. Look at Ryan Puglisi.
There it is.
Look at Gunnar Stockton.
There it is.
Look, these are guys that want to come and play for Mike Bobo. And now Jared Curtis finds his name on that list. Clint, what if I was to tell you
Go ahead.
that the number one quarterback in the country committed to Mike Bobo and the University of Georgia 20 years ago? And his name was Matthew Stafford.
Oh, that's wild.
And now 20 years later, do you understand what kind of a span of relevance we are dealing with here?
I do.
20 years later, before Jared Curtis was born, Mike Bobo was already landing number one quarterback prospects in the country for the University of Georgia. Now, his career has taken him in various places since then, and you could say whatever you want about any of those other stops. And guess what? I do not care.
Don't care.
Am I going to be sad that he wrecked Auburn's program?
Nope.
No, I'm not. I'm going to be thrilled that he did that. Do you remember when Will Muschamp went to Florida and flushed it down the toilet for us?
I do.
Yes, we do. We thank him for his services. Mike Bobo is great for Georgia. This offense is great for Georgia. And I don't need your opinion about it. I don't need to look at Twitter to find an opinion about it. The only opinions I need are the opinions of the best football players in the country. Do the top running backs, quarterbacks, offensive linemen, wide receivers, and tight ends want to come to the University of Georgia? The answer is unequivocally yes. Talon Taylor, 5-star wide receiver. Jared Curtis, 5-star running back. Nate Frazier, 5-star quarterback. Nate Frazier, 5-star running back. 5-star offensive lineman. Up and down the roster, Jackson Cantrell is the next one.
Oh, that domino fall. Come back for the third segment. The domino be falling. We talked about this yesterday.
Clint,
today.
The offense has been validated by the only validation that matters,
which is
the people that are going to play in the offense.
That's the one. That's the one I care about more than anything else, more than armchair quarterbacks, more than anything you want. Here's the reality of the situation. Jared Curtis was committed to Georgia, took a step back and reevaluated things. That wasn't a knock on Georgia. That was this kid looking around and doing what any one of us would have done, being the top talent prospect in the most prized position in one of the highest level sports in the world, you would do the same thing. He took a step back. He reevaluated. The evaluation came back. And even after going to offensive juggernaut Oregon and listening to them, even going to Phil Knight's checkbook, listening to them, Mike Bobo's calm, steady voice is still present, talking about the development that he took and he has to get Jared Curtis where he wants to go. And where he wants to go is the number one overall pick. That's where he wants to go.
Just like 20 years ago.
Just like 20 years ago, just like Mike Bobo always has. And maybe just hypothetically, I don't know. I'm not a head coach of a college program, but my observational skills are still there. Okay. Maybe, just maybe.
Okay.
There is more to coaching, play calling, and talent evaluation than you would like to think working your bottling job for Airgas. Maybe, just maybe, he has better insight than you do.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A few hours after the Zags landed a commitment from Parker Jefferson, a top 150 ranked center in the 2025 recruiting class. Just a few hours later, the Zags finally got word of their first transfer portal commitment of the spring, and Adam Miller, a 6'3" shooting guard from Arizona State. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. We're going to talk about who Adam Miller is, his career up to this point. This is about to be his fourth stop. Where else has he played? Where did he come from? What's he good at? What's he maybe not so good at? We'll talk about that. His role this upcoming season, what we expect him to do, who we expect him to kind of replace on Gonzaga's roster. We'll also talk pros and cons, the pros of this edition, maybe the cons of this edition, or what this means for the rest of the roster. And then we'll kind of close out the show getting more into that. What's left for Gonzaga to do after so much silence early in the offseason? We've now had two big additions within a couple of hours of each other. So now that the dust has settled on Miller and Jefferson coming to Spokane, what does this mean for the rest of the offseason? How many more additions do we expect? Is the rotation set? Is the lineup set? Et cetera, et cetera. We'll get to all of that to close out the show. But we're going to start with kind of an intro on Adam Miller. And for those of you who have been regular everyday listeners, first of all, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for making Locked On Zags part of your daily routine. Very much appreciate it. We've been doing these kind of transfer portal target shows pretty regularly over the last month, so I'm sure a lot of them kind of blend together. We talked about a lot of very similar style players, but it was a little over a week ago that we did talk about Adam Miller for the first time, and then it's been about a week of rumblings that he was going to commit. I think the first word came out that he was 24 hours away from committing. It was about a week before he actually made the commitment, but the projection that he was going to come to Spokane and come to Gonzaga was accurate. Just the timeline. It's always hard to predict what 22, 23-year-olds are going to do, but so we've kind of had Miller on the radar for a while. He's a senior. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, so he'll be at Gonzaga for 1 year, just like Caleb Battle was last year. He began his college basketball career way back in the 2020-21 season at Illinois, but because that is the COVID year, that is why he has that additional year of eligibility. 6'3" guard from Peoria, Illinois. He was a 4-star prospect out of Morgan Park High School. He was Mr. Illinois, a accolade also given to Braden Huff during his high school career. And Miller originally chose to begin his college career at Illinois after he had offers from Arizona State, where he ended up landing eventually. Louisville, Kansas, Memphis, Texas Tech were some of the other programs that offered him out of high school. And for good reason, because Miller immediately joined a high-profile program in the Big Ten in Illinois and played big minutes right away. He started 31 games as a true freshman for the Illini, playing 25 and a half minutes per game, averaged 8 points, about 3 rebounds, shot 34% from 3 on about 5 attempts per game. 34% on 5 attempts per game as a true freshman in the Big Ten is really good. And I think we're going to talk about some of the three-point shooting with him because he did have a couple not great years. And that is the first concern that a lot of people have brought up about Adam Miller. But as a true freshman, 34% from 3 on 5 attempts per game. Again, for those of you who have been listening to these, I talk a lot about how evaluating three-point shooting is important to do from a percentage, but also from a volume. Because somebody shooting 40% on less than 2 attempts per game, like Anton Watson did, doesn't necessarily equate to them being a good three-point shooter, whereas somebody shooting 29% but on 7 attempts per game, they may be somebody that you're more likely to project as a better three-point shooter. For Miller, 34% on 5 attempts per game is a good kind of healthy medium between a decent percentage as well as a high volume. And again, that was way back in the COVID year. After that, he transferred to LSU, but after transferring to LSU, he tore his ACL and missed the entire 2021-22 season. And so he misses that entire year, comes back in the 22-23 season, still at LSU, has yet to suit up for the Tigers in the SEC, does so in that season, and also another fantastic year for him, 11.5 points, a little over 2 assists per game. 33 games, 33 starts. This is the year where we saw the three-point shooting start to dip a little bit. 31.5% from 3 in his sophomore season on over 7 attempts per game. So again, very high volume shooter, but LSU was not very good. Floor spacing was more of a challenge. He took a lot more contested shots that season. So you saw that percentage drop a little bit. After that year, he hits the transfer portal again. This time he lands at Arizona State. So he began his career in the Big Ten at Illinois. And then in his second year, he ends up at LSU in the SEC. And then in his third year, he ends up at Arizona State in the, at the time, Pac-12 for Bobby Hurley's team in 23-24. Career high 12 points per game, a little more than 3 boards, 1.5 assists, played 31.5 minutes per game. Another year where he took a lot of threes, over 5 attempts per game, but this was the year where it dropped to 30%. So we have a 34% shooter as a freshman, a 31.5% shooter as a sophomore on 7 attempts per game, and then a 30% three-point shooter as a junior on 5 attempts per game. So definitely not trending in the right direction for his first 3 seasons of college basketball. I can understand the concern there. But then last year, he comes back to Arizona State, first year playing for the same school 2 years in a row. And while he played a few less minutes and the actual scoring numbers dropped a little bit, his efficiency went way up. And I think that's a very promising sign for his future. He averaged about 10 points a game. He averaged about 2 assists per game, shot 42.9% on threes, 43% from the three-point line. The volume was the lowest of his career, but it was still 4.5 attempts per game. That's a pretty good volume. Like, it's not the 7 attempts per game that he was taking at LSU. But again, I would expect a player who's taking 7 threes a game in the SEC to shoot worse than that same player taking 4.5 attempts per game in the Pac-12, or excuse me, the Big 12 last year, because Arizona State moved into the Big 12. So I'm not surprised to see that percentage come up. It's obviously a big jump from where he'd been previously in his career. And I think it's reasonable to have some skepticism on a player who only shot over 40%, who only shot over 35% once in his career, to be like, oh, well, he's a 43% shooter, so that's what the Zags are getting. Like, well, he hasn't been consistently a 43% shooter, but again, he's always been a high volume shooter. And I think that's something that we want to take into consideration. Gonzaga played Arizona State early in the year. In that game, Miller had 8 points, was 2 of 7 from 3. He scored 15 or more points 7 times last season, and almost all of them came against strong competition. I think that's an important note. Like, there's a lot of players that we talk about where it's like, oh, this guy had a career high 23 points against Prairie View A&M. And it's like, okay, well, let's see what they did against the better competition. Miller did very well against the best competition. He had 15 or more points. Again, that included an 18-point game on 5 of 9 shooting in the non-conference against Florida, the literal best team in college basketball, the national champions. He had a season-high 22 points on 10 of 17 shooting in a loss to Texas Tech, another one of the best teams in college basketball last year. He also scored 15 or more points at Colorado, against Arizona, against Nebraska, and against Santa Clara. All very quality teams for Miller to put up big numbers. Now, we're going to get more into his role in the second segment here as we talk the pros and cons, but I think it's pretty clear that Gonzaga has landed their starting shooting guard for next season. He's more of their Nolan Hickman replacement than I think the Caleb Battle replacement in terms of play style. Like, he's going to start at the 2. He's going to start next to Braden Smith at the 1, next to what I assume will be Jalen Warley at the 3. Part of that depends on the health of Steel Venters, but I see Adam Miller as a guy who's going to shoot a lot of threes, who's going to be asked to fill that role primarily. Nolan Hickman didn't take the ball to the rim much. He didn't get to the free throw line much. He was mostly a floor spacing guard and kind of secondary creator. Miller's not much of a point guard type. So I don't know that I think that role might actually go more to Warley when Smith isn't on the floor, but I do see Miller as kind of a catch and shoot 3-point specialist type in the vein of Nolan Hickman, not as much in the vein of the get the ball in his hands and let him create type of Caleb Battle situation that we had last year. So that's kind of my thought there. And I want to talk more about the pros and cons, because again, there are some obvious pros to Gonzaga adding a veteran guard in the transfer portal to a roster that desperately needed a veteran guard in the transfer portal.